So, welcome everyone to Growing in Uncertainty. My name is Tess Miller, and through my seminar, coaching, and therapeutic music and sound business, Wings Unfolded, I help people identify and move past whatever's keeping them stuck. And as the person who literally wrote the book of stuck, I'm a self proclaimed expert on being stuck. So, my intention with these videos, as always, is to share what I've learned and am learning about being stuck so that we can all grow in uncertainty together. And it is such an honor to introduce my friend and former colleague, Dr. Sam McIlhagga. We worked together at Albion College for, I think, almost your entire time there,
Yep.
at least 16 years. And
Yes.
Sam, Doctor, do you want me to call you Dr. McIlhagga or Sam?
I would really prefer that you call me Sam.
Okay. I just
The
wanted to
the
make sure.
doctor is part of the past.
I see. Okay, well, we'll get into
Yeah.
that in just a second.
Yeah.
So, Sam just recently took on the role of Director of Curriculum Innovation at Exploring Potential just recently. And like I said, before that, he was in the music field, conducting bands and performing and teaching for nearly 30 years before he decided to make a major shift in his life. So, welcome, Sam. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Tess. It's so good to see you.
Yay. Yes, it's good to see you too. That was one
Yeah.
of the bummers about not working there anymore, was not getting to see
I
you.
know. I know. And and just making music together, right? Whenever we had a chance.
Yeah, that's right. So, what ultimately inspired you to make this big shift in your career?
Starting off with big guns here, aren't we? Um, I would say it was a very slow, steady stream of signs that I conveniently ignored for a long time. Um, I love music, as I believe that you do as well. I love making music. I still love doing that and still get to do that. But what started to happen for me probably about 7 or 8 years into my time at Albion was I started to feel like I was in a rut. I kept doing um, the same things and yielding the same results over and over again. And even though, the schedule for a college teacher is pretty cush, right? I didn't have to get up and be at work by 8 and be home by 5. A lot of late nights and whatnot, but that in itself is not reason enough to want to stick with something, right? And so it just got a little bit more every year that I kept thinking, I don't feel like I've got the support that I need. I don't feel inspired anymore. I feel less creative. And those are things that it took me a while to realize that it wasn't just, I have a crappy drive to work, or I just was feeling off today, or whatever. It was literally that I wasn't, my soul, my spirit just wasn't getting fed. And it took a while for me um to get to the point where I just said, this is the time to go. I've got to let this go. Before, there was always an excuse to stay, right? The money's good, or kids are going to college, or any of those things were all important factors that kept me around. But eventually I had to do what was best for me and not necessarily what's best for everyone around me. But it turned out that it worked out well for all of us.
Sure. Yeah. And it's interesting to hear you talk about how you were kind of pushing away a lot of those things that were nagging you and telling you that, oh, maybe I am in a rut. Maybe this isn't really filling my soul. How
Yeah.
how did you go about distracting yourself from all of those things?
Um, that's a good question. I didn't do a very good job of it. But the McIlhaggas are notoriously good at denial. And so I could very easily just pretend like I would leave work and I would just focus my attention elsewhere and just try not to think about it.
Yeah.
Um, Sundays were always the worst because, as all the teachers out there know, Sunday you've got that sort of anxiety of, oh God, here we go again. So then it would sort of creep back in my mind, but I could do a pretty good job of pulling out of that and just not thinking about it. But in all honesty and complete transparency, therapy was huge for me and still is huge for me. And I've learned a lot about myself over the last few years because of it. Um, Things that Kristen my wife will look at me and go, yeah, I knew that. And I'll go, how did you know that? And I never knew. And yeah, well, that's kind of how that works. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, for for a lot of people who might experience that realization of, oh my gosh, I've really been ignoring some of these things. They
Yeah.
might have that one moment of realizing, or something triggers them to realize, wait a minute, what am I doing? What was the case for you? Like,
Hmm.
how did you transition from uh, ignoring to embracing, I guess?
Yeah. I don't know that there was one specific thing that was like a light bulb came on, but Kristen and I would have conversations at the end of the day, practically every day, Monday through Friday. I would come home and I would be miserable, and she would try to listen and cheer me up, or, just get me to talk about things without associating sort of an emotion with it, just be able to look at it objectively. What exactly happened and why, what is it that's making you feel this way? And can we change those things? And I think what really happened was about a year before I ended up leaving Albion, I realized that those things are never going to change. And so if those won't change, if the outside factors aren't going to change, I've got to make the change. And that scared the bejesus out of me
Mm-hmm.
because I grew up in a family, and maybe you have similar experiences, but my father was like, you get a job and you keep that job and you retire with that job. And the only reason you don't have that job is you did something wrong. Right. And I'm like, oh God, I can't let go of this. It's a job.
Yeah.
But eventually it got to the point where I was like, this is not good for me. And it's not going to change no matter what I do. So I
Right.
need to find something else.
Well, that sounds so brave, right?
Mm.
Because not only was it, I'm supposed to keep this job. It's amazing. It's cushy.
Right.
Whatever. It's all the things that people try to attain. But on top of that, it was in music.
Yeah.
And, musicians are, I think, in a lot of ways groomed for the idea of, if you have a full-time job,
Yeah.
don't give it up. You
Yeah.
can't
Don't
say
mess
no
with
to
it.
that. You're
Right.
crazy if you step away from that.
Right. And then doing, what you do and what I do, there's like one of us at each school. So it's not even like, there could be an English teacher in a school and there's four or five of them.
Right.
So there's more opportunity, I think, in that respect. But there's one band director at most schools, right? So to have a job and to be in, we wanted to be in Michigan. That was important to us. And I had a job in Michigan being a band director. And I should not let go of this because I don't know where the next thing could be. As a band director, I might end up somewhere that I really don't like. And so be happy with what you've got was sort of the mentality.
Right.
But I wasn't happy.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, how amazing that you were able to choose yourself in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was fortunate in that at the time the college was offering sort of buyout deals for people with so many years of experience. And that was a little bit of a that cushioned the blow, right? Instead of just leaving and going, I don't know what I'm going to do. I had some time where I didn't have to worry about how am I going to pay the bills, that I could spend time doing the work to figure out what was going to come next.
What a
Yeah.
gift.
Yeah. I was truly lucky to be able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And the fact that you took advantage of it, you were like, oh my gosh, I've been having these thoughts for a really
Right.
long time. I'm not feeling fulfilled. I'm feeling like I have untapped potential within me. And
Yeah.
here's this cushion.
Yeah. And Chris, when it came out, I was so scared to tell Kristen. I was like, I don't know if she's gonna think this is a good idea or not. And at the time, we had one in college, and then next year the next one's going to college. So like all of that stuff started to weigh on me, and I brought it up hesitantly, and I said, like, this is the thing that's going on and it's an opportunity. And I kept trying to give all the excuses why it's a good idea, and she was like, duh, you need to do that. It was like, oh my God, this is so good. It
Well,
was.
yeah, and speaking of telling other people about this, that's another fear factor, right?
Oh
Is
yeah.
how are other people going to respond to this? So you had support from Kristen like right off the bat, but
Yes.
what were some of the other responses that you got from colleagues, friends, family?
Yeah. So that's interesting. Everybody, at least on the outside, was positive about it because I wasn't leaving because I was angry or felt like I had been mistreated or anything like that. I sort of explained it as I'm just looking for a new opportunity. I just would like to do something different. And people were okay with that. However, I definitely had a big fear, especially with colleagues, other band directors that I know, good friends from grad school that I spent time getting this degree with them, and all of these hours of study and whatnot. I was like, what are they gonna think of me? I'm bailing on this. I'm giving up. That's what I perceived it to be at the time. I'm giving up on this. But they were all great. Fortunately, they were all really supportive of the move. Now, I'm in touch with many fewer of those people now than I was, but I think I'm in touch with the people that are the true friends and the true colleagues, like the ones that I can really count on, right? Those are the ones that I
Yeah.
still keep in touch with, and those are the ones I want to keep in touch with.
Yeah, yeah, that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. Out of curiosity, did you ever have the experience of somebody being like kind of pushbacky, but almost in a jealous way?
Hmm. Yeah, I would say, yeah, there were a handful of people that, because I had talked about it for a while before I actually pulled the trigger. And with some of the people that I've talked about it, they were like, yeah, that really sounds good. I'd love to be able to do that. And I just don't feel like I can, for all the same reasons that I said, basically. Um, and I would always respond the same way, which was, why not? Why can't you? I'm doing this, and as scary as it feels, it for me, it was an easy choice once I was ready to make the choice, right? It took
Hmm.
an awful lot of sleepless nights and just sort of, making the pros and cons lists and talking to lots and lots of different people about what they do
Hmm.
to finally get to that point. But once I did, I was fine with it. So those people that didn't pull the trigger, I just kind of I believe that they're just on the same path, but maybe just not as far along as I was.
That is such a good way of looking at it, and also such a good point, that
Yeah.
a lot of times when people hear that other people are doing something wild and making a sudden turn on their
Yeah.
path, I think it's normal for a lot of people to then filter it through their own lens of, oh my God, could I do that?
Right.
And then they have to verbalize it to the person who is making the shift, almost like they're testing in a way.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, sure. Sure. Yeah. And I think about it as you know, when I first started thinking about this, it was it was kind of a like, I don't know if I can do this because I didn't study to do anything else. I only learned to be a musician. So that's all I'm capable of doing. Otherwise, I have to go back to school and do something else.
right.
And then I started thinking, when I advised students and they would tell me, um, I want to go into performance, I want to play in an orchestra or something. What degree do I need for that? And I would say, I don't, you could have a business degree. It doesn't really matter. It's how good you are in your instrument. They don't care what degree you have. You just got to be able to play. And I feel like that is becoming more and more the case in the outside of academia, is people are recognizing that the skills that are required to do any job are oftentimes the ones that you can't teach in a college class, right? How to have emotional intelligence. There isn't a class on emotional intelligence. You develop it over time and experience, right? And so once I got over that hurdle, it became a lot easier to picture myself in different roles and to recognize that, oh yeah, I could do that, couldn't I? I have the ability to learn how to use a new piece of software, or sit at a desk instead of stand in front of a band and conduct. I can do that.
Yeah, so what are the skills that came with you from music to what you do now?
Sure. There were a number of different skills, and honestly, it took me a while to realize that I had the skills that were being described in job postings outside of academia, because they don't call them the same things, right? When they look for a project manager, you go, I never took a project management class. But honestly, when I'm a band director and I'm preparing for a concert, I'm doing rehearsals and I'm planning things out and I'm fixing mistakes, and that's project management. I'm planning a project, and the project is the concert. And so I was like, oh, right. I was a project manager. I've already done this. I have experience doing this. It's just placed into a different context, but it's the same work. So project management, I would say communication skills, right? Because standing up in front of a band of 80 people and talking to them and getting them to do something all at the same time takes a certain set of skills in communicating. Um, what else? Time management skills. All those things that you hear about when they're like on LinkedIn, they say, "Oh, take this 5-minute course to learn about this." I'm like, "Oh, I took some of those courses and I was like, oh wait, I already know all this. I just never called it that."
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Different terminology
Yeah,
between the
yeah,
music world and any other world.
right, right. I think the biggest hurdle for me in making that transition in terms of just the mind, besides the mind shift, was switching from a curriculum vitae to a resume. I'm like, how do I cram, this? I literally had, I think, a 20-page CV. It was ridiculous. And that's all that anybody asks for when you apply for a job in higher ed. They want to see all of that.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to see that in the business world. They want to see 2 pages. I'm
Yeah.
like, how do I say all of that in 2 pages? I have no clue. I figured it out.
Yeah. 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 It's just basic editing, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, and just being, yeah, it's summarizing a lot of stuff that you did, right? You
Right.
don't have to list every single conference that you spoke at with the date and the time and the number of, yeah, it's just different. That's all.
So, what are some of the skills that you feel like you might not have had going into
Hmm.
this new this new endeavor that you're
Yeah,
developing now?
right. So it's interesting. It's mostly hard skill type things like understanding for my particular thing that I'm doing, we're sort of designing online learning things, right? That's my main focus at this point. It might change within the company over time, but right now it's just sort of coming up with a concept. How do I teach this material? And then what steps do I need to take? And then the instructional design part of it, like how do I actually piece it together with the learning outcomes, and then coming up with like, here's the quiz at the end of this to show that you actually know what you've done and all of that stuff. So there are several different types of software programs that will help with those things that I'm not familiar with at all.
Yeah.
But I'm fortunate that I work with a team where other people are and everybody collaborates. So when I say, I have this great idea, I have no clue what it'll look like on the page on the computer screen. And they're like, oh, no, I see that. I can do that. And then you just kind of like, okay, show me what you did. So it as hard as it was to walk into a situation where I had to say, I don't know how to do this. Um, it was easy to learn those things on the job because people are willing to share their knowledge with you.
Mm.
Which again, I don't want to talk too badly about academia, but a lot of times people are pretty protective with their special gifts. And you're like, I'm not going to show you how I did that because I spent a lot of time and energy on how to. I don't feel that way anymore, which is nice.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. Well, and
Yeah.
you're using your collaboration skills that,
Right.
I mean, you got that as a musician in terms of
Oh, absolutely.
performance.
Yeah, absolutely. And true collaboration. So like when we did, do you remember when we did Facade oh so many years ago?
Mm-hmm.
And that was, I think, what, 7-piece ensemble or something. And I conducted that. I felt like that was true collaboration, right? It wasn't just one person saying, this is how it goes, but it was everybody chiming in with, what if we went a little faster here? It might help out X, Y, or Z, and then we could do this and maybe bring this out. And I felt like it was a lot of give and take.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like that is often the case, or it often wasn't the case in my teaching career, right? Because you're like the sage on the stage, you're the
Mm-hmm.
director, you have all the answers to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Students would get frustrated with me when I would conduct a rehearsal and I would stop and I would say, how do you think it should go? And they would be like, you got to tell me, I don't know. I'm like, yeah, you actually do. You do have an opinion, and it might matter if you just share it. But it was difficult to collaborate in that setting, but this new gig is just it literally there are seven of us and we have all contributed our own skills to help each other and to do our own thing as well. And it's been a joy for the past month and a half. It's been great.
That is so amazing.
Yeah.
Well, and out of curiosity, what are the backgrounds of your team members?
So I'm still learning all of this, but there's a graphic designer. So she does, animations, and she does like background visual stuff. It's all customized things, right? So it's not like go to a page that has 1,000 images and just pick one and drop it in. It was like create some from scratch. There's another person who's an animator, one who trying to think what everybody else's skills. There's some people that have sort of a strong background in video and media in that respect, like working in studios and understanding how to use all of the equipment that goes along with making a video or making an audio, like a professional audio recording, those sorts of
Hmm.
things. So everybody has their own sort of background, and I kind of fill a hole that they don't have, which is the idea of having a teacher that can speak to the content and the learning style and all of that. So it's been a
Right.
nice sort of, it all sort of fits together as a nice little puzzle.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds
Nope.
like every single person has like their own superpower that
Yeah,
they're
nobody's
contributing.
duplicating. Right.
Hmm.
Right. And we kind of overlap at times, right? So I don't presume to know everything about every piece of content. So I will come up with an idea and then I will share it with somebody and say, what do you think? Do you think it should go this way? Or am I making it too hard or too simple? Should I go slower? Should this
Yeah.
so and everybody just shares their thoughts, whether they have a deep knowledge of that particular piece that we're working on, or if it's just sort of, I know what I like when I see it.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Well, that also really sounds like what it is to be a musician too, because we're constantly thinking about, is that going to translate well in the audience? And we get
absolutely.
feedback from other people. Are you hearing this? What are your thoughts?
Yep. Yeah, we're always, I mean, when I taught, this one class that I taught was music performance as a creative process. I think maybe you were around when I started doing that. And there's a point where we have a discussion about the sort of the triangulation that musicians have to go through, right? I have to translate what the composer has presented me that's on the piece of paper that I'm reading. I have to then internalize that. So it's the composer, it's me as a musician, but it's also the audience. Am I conveying what the composer wanted to the audience? Because without one of those pieces, the whole thing kind of falls apart. And it's that sort of skill set is another one that's just been nice to be able to share with other people as well, to be able to have that perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's just amazing. What is something that you learned about yourself in this whole process of contemplating a career shift, actually deciding you're going to do it, and then really landing where you are now?
Yeah. Um, hmm, that's a good question. What did I learn about myself? I think that I can hear my dog sniffing underneath the door. If you can imagine what a Great Dane sounds like when she's snorting next to you. Uh, what were we talking about? What did I learn? I learned that uh, I do have value. I think that was something that I was really starting to doubt after a while. Like, do I really have something to offer
Hmm.
beyond what I currently do? That was huge for me. Also, just the idea that I can advocate for myself and speak to the things that I do know how to do, and to have confidence that yes, I actually do know how to do these things, and not sort of like, I kind of know how to ride a horse. I've seen it done. No, I actually
Right.
do. Not the horse thing. I've never ridden a horse, but I do have all these soft skills, right? I have 30 years of experience doing these sorts of things. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think those are the big ones.
Yeah, those are often the most important things, right? Our value
Right.
and worth, our own realization. Like it doesn't matter how many times somebody tells you, "You're amazing at what you
Yeah.
do. We couldn't do this without you." You know,
Right.
if you're not feeling it,
Hmm. And going back to being a musician, how much have we been taught to always be sort of self-critical, and it could always be a little better, could always be, if only I had had that one moment back. And
hmm,
gosh, that eats away at you after a while, and you start to not feel very good about anything if that's
yeah,
the way you look at life,
that's
right?
right.
You
Yeah.
appreciate what you've got, and recognize that, you know, it's unique, your voice is unique, you're valuable, um, and people will appreciate you for what you are and not what you could have been.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so for anybody out there who might be in that place of, all right, I'm not feeling like I have value. I'm not feeling like I'm living up to my potential. I've been thinking about making a change, but I don't know. What would you what would you suggest to them?
Hmm. I think life's too short to do something you don't like, and everybody likes something. And if you like it enough, you're going to invest the time and the energy to be good at it, whatever it is, right? For a while there, for me, it was music, but eventually that wasn't as interesting as developing learning material, which sounds kind of nerdy, but I love doing that now. It's such a joy. And then to see somebody do what you created and go, wow, that was really cool. That's so gratifying, right? Um, so I would say just, find however you discover that. It could be through a hobby that you have, it could be, talk to your friends, find out, ask them what they think you're good at. I found that really enlightening when I did that with some people, especially people that don't really know me as a musician, sort of know me outside of that world.
Yeah.
Because, I got kind of trapped in there where everybody would be like, oh, you're a really good band director. And I'm like, yeah, but but then I talked to some friends that we have that are just sort of social, right? Outside of their friends through our kids or whatever. And then they're like, oh, you really are a good communicator, or you do this really well. I've noticed that your eyes light up when this happens. And you're like, oh, I never realized that. And
Yeah.
that sort of helps find the path, I think.
Yeah. So finding those other people to point out to you what you might be missing about yourself
Yeah.
because it's easy to be blind to ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, I think for a lot of us, it's difficult um, to be able to pat yourself on the back and say, yeah, I actually am. I really am kind of good at that. Right. You always kind of like, well, I'm okay.
It could be better.
It could be better. Yeah. I mean, it's a work in progress.
Right. Right. Oh, that is so so awesome. I really have enjoyed hearing you say a lot of the things that, I've had to go through myself, just
Yeah.
having that experience mirrored back. And my hope is that other people who are watching and uh, having these same doubts about their paths are going to be able to think about it in a little bit different way, especially what you said about if it's really something you want to do and you really connect with, it's not going to feel like work to learn
Mm,
about it, to actually get out of bed and start doing it.
yeah.
And that's something that a lot of people I think are afraid of. What if after I make this shift, I still don't want to get out of bed in the morning?
Right.
But
It-
as you said, if it's what you love,
yeah. Yeah. But you can't lie to yourself, right? You can't say, oh, yeah, I love this. Yeah, I could see myself doing this. And you're like, yeah, but not really. No, I mean, you truly, and sometimes it kind of creeps up on you, right? When you least expect it, you're like, oh, I had a lot of fun doing that. I
yeah,
wonder if that could be a thing, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Wow. Well, if anybody wants to connect with you or know more about you, how might they find out more about you?
They're going to have to learn to spell the last name, but that's a struggle for all of us. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm no longer on Facebook, so you can't find me that way. You could probably find the past me that way, I'm guessing. But LinkedIn is the best way, or just my email. I've got a Gmail that's samuelmcilhagga@gmail.com. So I'm sure that like somewhere on the bottom it'll like print out right on your screen. It'll say Samuel McIlhagga.
I'll make sure it
I'm
happens
just
with like flashing
kidding. I
lights.
could write it really quickly and just hold it up.
Wait, yes, yes. While I'm doing the outro, you can just.
Yeah, exactly. Just creep it in there.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for everything that you've shared
It's been a
today.
pleasure. Yeah.
Yay. And, hopefully our conversation resonates with you all out there. Thanks so much for watching today. I'm always so grateful if you have any comments or feedback, or, of course, likes and subscribes always help because then more people can find these. And definitely, if you think there's anybody in your life who might benefit from hearing our conversation, please share it with them. You can find it here on Facebook or here on YouTube or on my website. It will be there as well. So you can stay tuned to any of my updates on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, uh, and all of those places. And if
You
there's
are so
anything,
connected.
I know it's ridiculous, right? I'm not on Twitter, nor am I. I don't do TikTok.
that that's okay.
I guess so. My son is constantly telling me, "Mom, you got to do TikTok," and that's just not.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe later.
Later, I'll figure that out later.
Right.
Anyway, um, if you want help with any kind of life transition, you can contact me. My website is wingsunfolded.com. And remember that it is okay to be stuck, but you don't have to stay there. Have an amazing, yeah, and your dog is saying absolutely.
Saying goodbye. It's time to wrap it up.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, take care and have an amazing week.
Bye, everyone.